Okay, I think we can start. So good evening, everyone. It's 6 p.m., November 20th, 2025. Welcome to tonight's public hearing. Wow. My name is Jim Mazzacco, and I'm the zoning examiner for the city of Tucson. We have one case scheduled for the public hearing tonight. As zoning examiner, I conduct rezoning hearings and special exception hearings on behalf of the mayor and council, and make findings of fact, which I put into a written report along with my recommendations, which I sent to mayor and council for their consideration and for their final decision. My reports will be based on the information submitted to me, which includes the staff report, all written approvals and protests, all correspondence, and testimony given at tonight's public hearing. I also include in the record all documents submitted to me up to the close of the public hearing. Tonight's proceedings are being recorded, and when I call on you to testify, please speak clearly into the microphone and begin your testimony by stating your name and your address. I will complete a preliminary report within 5 working days after the public hearing is closed. I will then prepare a final report, which will be issued 14 days after the public hearing is closed. I have the speech about receiving a copy of any of my recommendations or reports. If you're not listed as a party of record, as I look out into the audience, I can see that we only have party of records here. Anyone wanting a report can call the City of Tucson Planning and Development Services Department, and copies will be available from the Planning and Services Department website. My final report, which includes my recommendations, will be sent to the mayor and council for a scheduled public hearing. The mayor and council will then vote on the matter based on my recommendations, along with other factors they take into consideration. Now, for those who plan to speak, I request you stand and respond to the following. Do you swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. With that, let's begin. The first case is TP-MOD-0825-000045 Superstar Car Wash Golf Links, major change of condition and preliminary development plan, Ward 4. Staff report first.
Thank you, Mr. Zoning Examiner. This is John Beal, Section Manager for Planning and Development Services. This request is submitted by Burt and Cacciolo, PA, on behalf of the property owner, SSCW 22508, Golf Links LLC. It's a major change to the preliminary development plan and conditions for rezoning case TP ENT 1022-00001, which was ordinanced by Mayor and Council on November 19, 2024. It is proposed that the preliminary development plan for the original case remain in effect and be combined with the new preliminary development plan, which pertains only to the change in landscaping along the site's southern property line. The applicant seeks to modify condition 14, which currently requires increasing the height of an existing block wall along the site's southern property line by 2 feet to screen an adjacent residential use. The requested change would substitute landscape screening in place of the increased wall height due to structural concerns with raising the existing wall. The proposal is located at the southeast corner of East Golf Links Road and South Pantano Parkway. Staff would like to note that the applicant is requesting to add a condition to mitigate noise from the car wash in response to a protest from a neighbor on the south side. The proposed major change is compatible with existing surrounding land uses and is in compliance with Plan Tucson and the South Pantano Area Plan and Pantano East Area Plan. Subject to compliance with the attached preliminary conditions, approval of the modified conditions and associated preliminary development plan is recommended. As of to date, staff has received 1 approval and 1 protest. That concludes staff's report.
Okay, thank you. The applicant?
Good evening, Mr. Zoning Examiner and Mr. Beal. For your records, my name is Madison Leak. We're at the law firm of Birch and Cracchiolo. Our address is 1850 North Central in Phoenix. I also have Patrick with me from Superstar Car Wash, who we're representing on this case, and he was also available to answer any questions. John, is my PowerPoint on the next slide? Oh. No worries. I think you might have to click play or start presentation from first slide or something along those lines. Or just push? Oh, okay, it could be small. I'm not a tech expert either. So here's the site, just for a little bit of background and reference. So we're all talking about the same thing. As you know, this is on Golf Links and South Pontano Way, and the site is between a Circle K and a future Big O Tires. The Big O Tires has not gone in yet, and as Mr. Beal pointed out, this zoning case was originally approved in November of 2024, so right around a year ago. That was the final adoption of ordinance. It was recommended for approval about a year prior to that, and the site was rezoned to C2. As part of our stipulations of approval, their number 14 was that the developer shall offer to each of the neighbors to raise the existing block wall approximately 18 inches, and that was to be done within 60 days after our original zoning examiner hearing, which was done. Here's the letter we sent out. This went out April 3rd, 2023. So now we're traveling back in time a little bit. It was about 50-50 of neighbors saying yes and no. Some neighbors wanted it, some neighbors did not want it. We also then went through the process with the HOA of doing their version of kind of a design review where we were submitting the wall. And so we went substantially down that route. There is a picture on the screen that I think is helpful, and this is when the field engineers went out to examine the wall, and they actually determined that not only was there not an adequate footing, but there is actually no footing on this wall. It's called a tension wall system, and therefore the wall was not structurally sound, and it was it's not safe to add anything to this wall, let alone 18 inches. So that was not a great option. So given the issues with building onto the wall, and we just tried to work with the city, and Mr. Beal helped us significantly of what else can be done here that will benefit the neighbors, maybe even be better than raising, every other house's wall 18 inches, and of course will be safe, which is the most important thing. So what we came up with as we worked together was landscaping along the southern property line, which is where that additional 18 inches of height would have been. So the intent there is to do something, the same height, do something that's visually attractive, and do something that's a good buffer and separation. So now on your screen, I have a couple exhibits that I think are helpful. You'll be able to see what this is proposed to look like. There will be, in the stipulation I'll show later, you can see there's really good specifics about the type of species, the height, etc. But the intent was almost like a hedge like bush, and the city also helped us determine what a good species would be, to where these could be planted to where they would be as tall as the wall, eventually will grow to be even taller. There'll be a nice buffer and they'll be very attractive. And this is completely on Superstar's property. So it's no burden to the neighbors. They're not having to be negatively impacted. They just get the benefit of seeing a small bush over their walls. Here's a rendering of what it looks like. Looks very attractive. We notified those neighbors that received the original ask if they would like to raise their walls, that it was not feasible. We sent them these exhibits, and we hosted a virtual neighborhood meeting so that any neighbors could give their feedback on this proposal or just, be aware of it. I also listed my contact information if anyone had any other questions. We had one attendee at the neighborhood meeting who was supportive of this and found this more attractive, but then obviously it was appreciative of the safety considerations. No one wants their wall falling over. So that was our neighborhood outreach. Here is the proposed stipulation that I'm not sure if Mr. Beal read yet, but just wanted to point a couple of things out. We specify that the landscape screening must be designed to help reduce noise, and then it gives two specific species options to be sure that the intent of the screening and the height is met. It's also required that they're planted at no less than 7 feet on center and be a minimum of 8.5 feet tall at the time they're planted. We wanted to be sure these weren't very small bushes that would take a very long time to mature. So that is, kind of the conclusion of the change of condition case. I think overall it's a very simple request. We had a condition to offer to raise a wall. We did that. It was found not to be structurally feasible. We're appreciative of the city for working with us on something that works for everyone and will, still meets the intent of the stipulation. I personally think this will be more attractive, especially since several of the neighbors declined to have the wall raised. That was very difficult. Almost unrelated to that, as Mr. Beal pointed out, we did have one protest that I received Wednesday, so 2 days ago. This neighbor is not one of the neighbors that would have had her wall raised because she is not one of the neighbors immediately adjacent to the south. She is a little bit further east. And she said that she was experiencing noise. So we took that very seriously. Superstar looked at it and we had our professional sound consultants look at it. And one thing they realized very quickly was that the Big O, even though they were ahead of us in the zoning process, has not been built yet. So due to the orientation of the tunnel and the Big O not being there yet, our noise consultant was able to see how she could be experiencing more noise than intended. So we wanted to work on that immediately, and our noise consultant came up with the idea, and then Mr. Beal and I drafted this proposed condition to add sound dampening material to either the tunnel exit, near the exit, or to the wing wall that's existing near the exit, because that is where that sound is coming from that she's experiencing. So I had that discussion with our sound consultant, and then I also had a discussion with the neighbor on this proposed solution. I will not testify for her, but from my understanding, she was very happy with the solution, and she was very appreciative that Superstar took this seriously. They're very committed to being a good neighbor. And since we're kind of in this interim condition where Big O isn't built yet, we want to be sure that no one's being negatively impacted. That is the end of my presentation, and we're available for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So let me just get a couple things straight that I make sure I understood them. You had a neighborhood meeting. There was one attendant, and that attendant was concerned about the maturity of the bush that was being planted. And what you're just telling me is that the plantings will be 8.5 feet. Is that correct?
Mr. Zoning Examiner, it's correct that we had one attendee at the neighborhood meeting. I guess I don't know if she was concerned about it, but we did discuss how it was, we all had the goal of wanting those plantings to be mature, which is why staff has drafted the stipulation as written that requires it to be 8.5 feet. So that is how we wanted to address that solution. We completely agree that it should be, should start out as a large bush.
Okay. Because normally, if you were under the city landscape code, they could be a 5-gallon plant. So you're going way above the city standard.
That's correct.
Mr. Zoning Examiner, when the applicant was looking to do some landscaping and sent down some renderings, we did run that by the city's landscape architect and to review that to see how that, and he made some comments and suggestions as well to them. So that worked that way with that, addressing that.
That's good to hear. So the city landscape professional
Correct.
Was involved in the design of this particular buffer yard.
Yes, I am not a landscape expert, but thankfully our landscape experts and the city's landscape experts were able to come up with the best species.
Great. And when I was reading the materials before the public hearing, I was a little bit concerned that the only information I was getting was that the wall was structurally unfeasible. And I didn't understand what that meant in details. Could you once again just specify what the answer to the question is? What is what does structurally infeasible or unfeasible mean?
Absolutely. And I'm going to bring the picture up just so we all have it in front of us as well. It's very typical for walls to only be built with the footing that supports the original wall that was built. And so this wall was a 6-foot wall when it was built. So typically they would build a footing that would support a 6-foot wall. There's typically not a good engineering reason to build more of a footing than is necessary. So this is actually a problem that we run into very frequently. It's actually very rare that we are able to raise walls because typically the footings are, built to support the original wall. This was actually a little bit worse than what I'm used to seeing because not only was the footing inadequate, there was no footing. So right now this wall is just being supported by tension. So I would not recommend placing, even one of my small dogs on top of this wall. That's not an engineering thing. That's a bit of a joke, but truly it couldn't safely support anything additional.
Because one of the things I was thinking of asking is, could you anchor any kind of noise absorbent panels to the top of the wall? And what you're telling me is no, that couldn't, because the entire wall isn't even designed to be a 6-foot wall.
I don't want to speak out of turn since I'm not an engineer, but my understanding is that adding anything to the wall would not be safe because it's essentially balanced at this moment. So it's secure right now. It's, equal force on each side. So in that situation with a tension wall, you don't want to add anything to it. It's safe as is. It's also not our wall. So we would hate to do anything that would hurt the neighbors. And I think that's why several neighbors even declined the original request of raising the wall. It's not our wall, it's their wall. So that's why we're happy with this solution where it can be completely on Superstar's property. It's our responsibility to maintain. It's no difficulties to the neighbors.
In the April 3rd, 2023 letter, the writer, I think is the chief executive officer, is saying that a sound study was done of the site and the operation of the car wash will meet the city of Tucson's noise ordinance. That's a true statement. I assume that you're still saying the same thing.
I'm not a sound engineer, but our opinion has not changed. I believe when they did that study, it was even above and beyond what the sound ordinance would require.
Okay, the sound ordinance requires 70 decibels during operation, a daytime operation. And 70 decibels is equivalent to the human voice not using this type of microphone. So it sounds, Mike, I was just concerned, and it seems like you're addressing these things, that a landscape buffer is not the ideal noise absorbent medium. Something more solid would be better, but you're already within the bounds of the city by meeting its noise ordinance. And you are adding at least some noise abatement with a large hedge of hopseed bushes, because hopseed can grow to 15 feet or more. So it seems like that's going to be pretty thick, a pretty thick hedge, and it's going to intermingle. It's not going to, your pictures kind of show them as like little trees on their own with spaces, but once they start growing, they're going to all intermingle into one big hedge.
That's true. And then additionally, we're then proposing that additional condition for even more sound buffering. And something interesting I've learned throughout working with different sound consultants is, raising a wall 2 feet might make less of a positive impact than you think because the way sound travels, it just kind of goes up and over. So the amount of height that you would have to build to get a true difference in sound is a lot more than 18 inches. So I ultimately think these solutions are more targeted, being located right at the loud part of the car wash where we're proposing to add sound dampening.
Okay. Let me see if I have any. And you also mentioned that you spoke to Ms. Nicholas, and she's getting sound just because sound travels, doesn't pay attention to zoning or property lines, and is hitting her property, and you're addressing that through the added condition.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, I think I have gone over all the things that I wanted to just make sure I understood them. Do you have anything else you'd like to say, Ms. Lee?
No, we appreciate the city for assisting us on this. I appreciate Susan's feedback, and we were not aware that there was that issue for her. So we were happy to hear it, and we were happy to immediately address it. And I appreciate the way she worked with us, and we're going to continue to keep her updated. So thank you, Mr. Zoning Examiner.
Okay, thank you. Also, I was asking John if your PowerPoint is available so that I could take a look at it after the public hearing.
Actually, Mr. Zoning Examiner, when we put that in that, we have it online for you.
Okay,
So,
so I'll be able to take a look.
yes.
Okay. Well, with that, unless your colleague has something to say, do you have anything to say? No?
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I will close the public hearing. It is now 6:21 PM and public hearing is closed. Thank you for coming.